Newry, the Marshes, just over 3 weeks to go to the All-Ireland final. The countdown in training has begun. It's pouring rain. The hardship is on. While the focus is now very much on September the 18th, there's still time to discuss events with old and young alike. Aidan Farrell, you're the youngest member of the squad, or certainly of the 15 that turned out in the All-Ireland semi-final. Has that posed any problems for you? Do you get lots of advice from them?
Certainly, the older members of the panel certainly help me a lot. The likes of Greg Blaney and Ross Kerr and people like that that have been there before, you know. But I feel that each time you go to Croke Park, it's a different game, and irrespective of what age you are, you've got to go out and do your best all the time. And thankfully, it paid off the last match.
It must have been something like a dream for you. Everything went exactly as you might have wanted it.
Yeah, it was great because I was there in '91 up on the hill watching these players, and things went well that day. But the last Sunday was brilliant because everything just went well for the team and for me in general. So I was happy.
In '91, Barry Breen scored a goal in which he thought that maybe Mickey Linden had held on too long before he delivered it. Did you have that feeling yourself just before the goal?
No, I knew Mickey was going to get it because the ball bounced in behind me, and I knew Mickey was fast enough to get it. And it just happened that I was up and he passed it to me, and just it went over and delayed.
You know what Dublin capabilities are. How do you feel about that game? It'll be another real test for you again.
Well, certainly Dublin pose our biggest threat to date, because Dublin play a really physical game, and they are a physically strong team, so we'll have to match them both physically and be mentally strong for the game itself.
Eamon Burns, the question every Down supporter wants to know is, are you going to be fully fit for the final?
I hope so at this stage, Kevin. I'm not too sure. There's been a big improvement with the injury in the past 10 days, so hopefully if it keeps recovering at this rate, I have a chance of being fit.
You've been a revelation at half-back for many people. Are you actually enjoying that role more than midfield?
It's a wee bit different than playing in the middle of the field, but at the same time there are qualities which are similar. In the middle of the field you both attack and defend. At half-back you both attack and defend. It has taken me a wee while to settle down in the position, but I'm glad that I'm getting a place on the team where I have been up to date, you know.
Dublin also have a midfielder turned to a half-back, Paul Clark. Are thoughts of Dublin now very much in your mind?
Yeah, Dublin's line out and ours is fairly similar. They have midfielders that are playing in the half-back line, and they also have midfielders that are playing in the half-forward line. We are sort of focusing in now on Dublin. We've got by Cork in the semi-final, and the target's now Dublin, as well as Dublin's target will be ours.
And any coincidence in that you're wearing Dublin's blue? Is that the way to keep yourself thinking about it?
No, it's just coincidental that I haven't a blue t-shirt on here tonight, Kevin.
Greg Blaney, hardly any need for motivation. You must feel as perhaps the senior member of this team that you've got to win another All-Ireland now rather than later.
Yes, I think for myself, I might be running out of time to win another All-Ireland, but certainly we're now due to play Dublin in a couple of weeks' time in All-Ireland final, so motivation at this stage isn't really a problem.
You've got some hard training to do now. Pete McGrath's urgently waiting to get things going. These are difficult weeks really though, are they?
Yeah, well, they're difficult enough. I suppose we've got 3.5 more weeks to go to the match, so this week and next week will be fairly tough physically, and then a week or two before the game things will taper down a bit, but it's demanding, but really in All-Ireland final, you know, you don't mind training no matter how many nights you're training.
And when does the real thinking and talking about Dublin begin?
Yeah, I would say the thinking probably has begun. You know, there's a few of us down at the game on Sunday now, so you know the stage really is set for Dublin and down. But I would say, I suppose possibly that there'll be more talk about Dublin probably the 2 weeks before the game, as opposed to this week and next week.
It'll be different this time round. You were underdogs against Meath in '91. That seems to have been reverted this time to the favourites tag almost.
Well, I don't know. I would say in '91 certainly we were definite underdogs against Meath, you know, and most people wouldn't have predicted anything other than a Meath victory, but this game against Dublin we may possibly be the boogies' favourites, but favourites I don't think means an awful lot. You know, there'll not be a lot of people surprised if Dublin win the game, so really I think it's a fairly evenly matched game.
But you are confident nonetheless?
Oh, I think any time we're in the All-Ireland final you have to be confident. Certainly we'd be confident that we can win the game, but we know we'll have to play.
Yeah, Pete hasn't given us the specific person we're marking yet. It could be either Charlie Redmond or Desi Foyle, but it's just on the day you go out and you try to do your best and see how it goes, you know. You can see here it's still pretty hard, you know. I think after tonight it'll get a wee bit easier, but Pete's still putting us through our paces, you know. And Cabroni's not really beautiful when you're training as hard as this, isn't it?
Pat O'Hare, We're into the final weeks now. The preparations have to be made. You've got a lot of hard work to do over the next 10 days or so, I presume.
Yes, we had a very heavy session in Straver Forest on Monday night. Our normal format would be the 2 weeks prior to the last fortnight would get the heavy work done. The boys ran, I would say, about 4 to 5 mile Monday night. We have a fairly stiff session tonight, and then Friday night they'll go to the meadow in Straver, which again is hill sprints, and that will be repeated next week before we start knocking down to the speed work.
There must be worries, though, that when you must do the heavy training, that injuries can occur.
That is always the worry, but warm-up's a vitally important part, and really, boys of this calibre are well like professionals. They should know how to warm up. They should know to be well stretched, and we take constant breaks during the night to let them stretch again, so that hopefully it keeps injuries down to a minimum. We've 1 or 2 at the moment, niggly ones, but you'd be more prone to get colds and flu, believe it or not, at this stage, as opposed to hamstring tears or anything like that.
A number of these players, as you mentioned, their calibre, well, you know them, and in fact you're perhaps responsible for the calibre of some of them. The Downpatrick players in particular, those that have come through St. Pat's there, a good bunch of players and a good bunch of people to work with, were they?
I would like to think now that we helped in some small way. The boys that came through, we were lucky to have them. Lads of great talent and ability, and Downpatrick would be recognised as a fairly strong soccer stronghold. And the unique thing about these boys is from a very early age all they wanted to do was play Gaelic football. But thinking of the game in Croke Park, it struck me. I remember hearing Kevin Heffernan talking one night at a talk, and he said when he picked his Dublin team to start with, he looked for a very strong spine. And when I looked at the spine of the Down team at the moment, there was Neil Collins in goals, Brian Burns full-back, Barry Breen centre-half, Conor Deegan at midfield. And it was nice to think that a large part of the spine of the Down team comes from the Downpatrick area. And so we have new lads there like Richard Starkey and Gareth Bailey, Kieran McCabe pushing for their place. So I hope in some small way we've helped the effort in the county.
You've seen Dublin, you know their capabilities, how good they are. What are your feelings going into the final?
My first feeling is that Dublin are the only team now I've seen this year that are as fit as ourselves. They're an extremely fit team. Like ourselves, they're playing with a bit of a grudge. They've felt that they should have won an All-Ireland before now, and they're playing like a team that really wants to win an All-Ireland. We feel that we have had bad press since '91. So we're playing like a team that really wants to show everybody that it wasn't a flash in the pan. I was very impressed with Dublin, very impressed with their attitude and their commitment. And at this point, I would say that it'll only be a point or 2 difference. Whoever wins it one way or the other. But I can see a mighty struggle coming up.